I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that Gene Hackman's untimely death has anything at all to do with the Jeffrey Epstein Files being released today. What's up? This is Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And I have been tasked by the good Lord above with doing whatever I can every single day to help you understand exactly what's going on in the world, help you navigate the political spectrum and the political earthquake and the earth-shattering news that keeps bombarding us every single day, knowing who your enemies are, trying to figure out who your allies are, and making sure that you never really trust anybody fully, but you trust the right people just enough to get through. That's my motto here. Don't trust anybody, but if you're going to trust anybody, trust me more than most. And that's why we sit here every day and we do what we do, which is discuss all of the weird and bizarre news, and we try to connect the dots. Look, I know a lot of people yesterday, they heard the Epstein Files were going to be released. I was one of them. I jumped on the internet and I saw Pam Bondi talking to Jesse Waters and breaking the news. And I thought to myself, did Jesse Waters know this was going to happen when he talked to Pam Bondi? Did Jesse Waters know that she was going to drop this massive piece of news, that she was going to release the Epstein Files, or at least part of the Epstein logs and lists and whatever she has on her desk today? We know, I mean, she told us last week, yeah, I got it on my desk. I got it just sitting there on my desk. Imagine that, like my desk. What do I have here on my desk? I have a knife. It's sheathed, so, I have a Donald Trump bobblehead doll. I have this horn that my son gave me. It's a Trump pet because he put little Trump stickers on. I was very, very thrilled about that. I got oh, this is very popular. This is the MAGA, garden gnome that people are always asking me about. People constantly say, where can I get your garden gnome? Somebody said it's a demonic symbol and I should get off my desk. But look, there's the guy that made it. So if you want one, give him a call. His number's right there. You can screen grab that and you can get your own gnome. But anyway, that's what I have on my desk. Pam Bondi has the Epstein client list just laying on her desk. She's like, yeah, I'll get to it next week. I know the security is probably pretty hard. Probably pretty good security at the DOJ, but hopefully it's not just on her desk. Hopefully it's locked somewhere in a secure vault in her office, surrounded by armed guards that nobody will be able to access. Anyway, she says she's going to release it today. It's already 12:18, pardon me, Eastern time. I'm not sure what we're waiting for here. I know, I don't want to be impatient because it's been years. I mean, this has been years since we've been hearing about all this stuff. It's been years since we've been promised this Epstein client list. Donald Trump said he was going to do it as soon as he became president. Kash Patel said day one. Pam Bondi this is about the closest we've ever gotten, but we still don't have the, what are they waiting for? Are they waiting for close of business? I mean, if it were me, if I were on Jesse Waters and I was like, hey, I'm going to release this list tomorrow, it'd be I'd wake up, I'd brush my teeth, put on my clothes, go to work, get a coffee, go to work and be like, all right, first things first, let's release that list, because I told everybody that that's exactly what I was going to do. Anyway, we'll get to that here in just a minute. I have all the audio from that. I have Marsha Blackburn saying that she also has some information. It's going to be released in phases. We've got a lot of stuff from the cabinet meeting yesterday. The best cabinet, by the way, that has ever been put together, bar none. Bar none, it is the best cabinet that has ever been put together. And that is not hyperbole. That is not me speaking out of turn. That is Elon Musk's direct quote. And Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, so he must know something about something. Also the Doge fallout. The Doge fallout continues. It's amazing. The more that the media says people hate Doge, the more people seem to love Doge. And we'll get to all that here before too long. I'm really excited about it. Also, Paul Stone, our good buddy, is going to be here. Listen, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, if you've not yet subscribed to this podcast, if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube or any of those other places, do me a solid, do yourself a solid, and make sure that you hit subscribe, because we bring you content all the time. Like, it's constant content. That's us. That should be the name of the show. And we don't want you to miss any of it. Sometimes it falls through the cracks. There's so much coming at you so quickly that sometimes you miss it. And we want you to know exactly when it's coming and where you can get it. So subscribe, hit those notifications, make sure you tell iTunes, I want this podcast every day. And they'll just deliver it right to your cell phone. They're actually pretty good like that. When you subscribe to this podcast, you don't have to do anything else ever. You just turn on your car, you put in your earbuds, boom, there I am screaming in your face. So it's a good, it's good for It's good for everybody. All right, let's get to the. Oh, by the way, we should start with Gene Hackman, because Gene Hackman, very sad. Gene Hackman, one of the, literally like an all-around great actor. 80 films or 80 plus films this guy was in. Woke up this morning, found out that he was found dead in his home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, along with his wife, who was in her 60s. She's a world famous pianist, and their dog also their dog was found unfortunately deceased, which I know there's a lot of like animal lovers that was the saddest part of the story for them. There's just people like that. In fact, I saw people like, no, not the dog. Okay. What about Gene Hackman, the American legend and icon and, Academy Award winning actor, and his wife, who's a professional? But what about the humans? Now, what about not the dog? Why did they kill the dog? Well, listen, we don't know that anyone killed anybody. But when I woke up this morning and I first heard the storyline that I got was no foul play. Nothing seemed like there was any kind of crime committed. It seemed almost like they were setting it up to be some kind of tragic accident, carbon monoxide poisoning or a gas leak or something along those lines. And if you look at three, I guess we would say 2 people and a dog, or 3 creatures who all succumbed at the same place at approximately, I guess, the same time, it seems like that would be the tale that you would want told. Well, that was this morning. Fast forward a couple of hours, and right before showtime, I read on the New York Post, Gene Hackman and wife's death investigated now as suspicious after door was found open, pills found. The deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife, one of their dogs, is being investigated as suspicious by authorities, who said on Thursday that the door to the couple's Santa Fe, New Mexico home was unsecured and opened. Police wrote in an affidavit obtained by TMZ. By the way, this is Gene Hackman. I want to say it was like yesterday is what I heard. I heard this was a photo taken yesterday. This guy's 95 years old. How good does he look for 95 years old? First of all, I notice he still has hair, which I'm a little, that's fine. He probably took better. There she is. Look, there she is with the dog. They all look fit. There's their home. But he's 95 years old. He's up and about. He's walking around. He's fully dressed. He's got hair. He's drinking coffee. He's got some kind of snack. Does not look 95 to me. Gene Hackman not looking 95 there. Anyway, so here's the deaths of Gene Hackman, his wife, and one of their dogs is now being investigated as suspicious. Authorities said the deaths were suspicious enough in nature to require a thorough search and investigation, after also finding an open pill bottle, and pills were also scattered around the room where Hackman's wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, and the dog were discovered. Meanwhile, Hackman's body was located in a separate room, and there was no obvious sign of a gas leak, according to the report. Apparently, they have the New Mexico Gas Company now working with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department to try to figure out what went wrong. So they see the doors open. They found pills, which, again, look, my dad died last year. He was older. He's almost 80. My wife's parents are in their 80s. Pills are not uncommon when you have somebody of an advanced age in a home. Pills, not an uncommon sight to see, depending on what kind of pills they are. So that's not really, to me, suspicious. The door being opened, it's Santa Fe, New Mexico. Maybe something happened. But I would say, if they're not investigating, or if they're investigating with a gas company and they're saying there's no obvious sign of a gas leak, or there was no car left on in the garage or anything like that. Also, you have to imagine, now that the more that I think about it, you have to imagine, because I was the first going, carbon monoxide poisoning, but Gene Hackman and his wife, I have to imagine they had a security system on this home. The guy's famous, right? There's crazy people out there. The guy's won Academy Awards. They're worth probably several $1 million. I get it. I imagine he's got fire protection, fire alarms, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide. My and smoke detectors are linked together. It's carbon monoxide and smoke. And you know what happened? One time we actually had to call the fire department, because what happened was we opened up the garage door, and I guess the car, there were some fumes. I guess we'd closed the garage door too quickly. Some of the carbon monoxide from the car came right inside, and there was a detector right by the garage, and it set it off. And then, of course, what happens is they're all linked. So then as soon as one goes off, they go off in the whole house, and everyone starts freaking out and screaming and crying. And we ran outside with the dogs, and I called the fire department, and they go, yeah, you probably just had a little bit of carbon monoxide come in from your garage, but you guys seem like you're okay. But I have to imagine, if I've got it in my house, Gene Hackman's got it in his house, and there's they would be able to tell, hopefully, if those things went off. But again, that's all we know. It's now being investigated as suspicious. And also, I don't personally believe it has anything to do with the Epstein Files. Again, I could be wrong. Gene Hackman he's always been touted as just a great guy. One of Hollywood's great guys. He's just a good, wholesome dude, great actor. He 20 years ago. I mean, this is why I don't think it has anything to do with Epstein. First of all, he's 95 years old, or was. Rest in peace. Also, he's been married for 20 some odd years to this woman. He's been retired for 20 some odd years to this woman, and he just lives out in New Mexico. I don't think he's bothering anybody. I think it was either a tragic accident, or could it be one of those things we don't know about where, he's in failing health, or he's in an advanced age, or he's like, look, my time has come. I've had enough. And they couldn't, bear the thought of living without each other. So they planned this mass. Who knows? I don't know. I have no information other than what I read in the New York Post. I'm just saying, I don't think it has anything to do with the Jeffrey Epstein files being released. Okay. Speaking of which, yesterday I'm on the internet, which is not shocking. I'm always on the internet. Literally on the internet, like 24/7. Even, it's so funny because I'll yell at my kids. I'll be like, because we'll be watching a movie or something like that. It'll be like family movie night. And my kids will be, oh, wait a minute. So somebody dropped some cash on the YouTube chat. I just saw $50 from Sallow. Cannot wait to see you in Congress. You're the only show I make sure I never miss. Keep up the great work, Mark. Thank you, Sallow. That is I don't know why that didn't pop up on the screen, but I appreciate that. That was very, very sweet. Anyway, back to me yelling at my kids. So we'll be watching family movie night. We'll be hanging out. It's like family movie night. Everybody pay attention to the movie. Let's have some family time. And then all of a sudden I'll look over, my daughter will be like sneaking her phone and she'll be texting me. I'll go, put that down. It's family movie night. And literally like 2 minutes later, I pick up my phone because like cat turd tweets and I get a notification. I'm like, oh, ha, ha, ha. And I go respond. And then everyone's looking at me like, wait a minute. I go, they're like, it's family movie night. I go, I'll be with you in a minute. Anyway, so the point is I'm on the internet all the time. If you're trying to find me and you can't find me in the usual places, just go look at the internet. That's where I am. And I see not late last night, but I guess during Jesse Waters' show, so somewhere between 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern, Pam Bondi pops up and she announces, breaking news, I'm releasing some of the Epstein files tomorrow.
There are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
Okay, that was last night, which means that today is today, right? So if that was last night, then today is today. And that's basically, hold on, let me pull it. So that's basically what we're dealing with there. That was last night. Today's today. We still don't, by the way, have the Epstein information, or at least I don't have the Epstein information. We don't have the Epstein information, or at least I haven't seen any of it. And again, the tick-tock, the clock continues. Now, Marsha Blackburn, who's also very involved in this entire... What we're dealing with there, who's also very involved in this entire process. She also was on Fox News, and she said, look, I got some information too, and I know how this stuff's going to come out. I know how this stuff's going to get released. Here is what Marsha Blackburn said.
This is going to be a phase 1 release in short order. I will have the hard copy in my hand. AG Bondi is responsible for what will be the public release on this. She has worked diligently on this and so appreciative that we can begin to get this information, that we can begin to break apart what became a global human trafficking, sex trafficking ring, about $150 billion a year business. It is time to get some justice for these victims, for these women and children, and this will be a phase 1 release. There will be more to come.
All right. Now, I wasn't super thrilled when I heard that, the whole phase 1 release, but all right, I wasn't super thrilled to hear. Usually Marsha Blackburn doesn't let anybody down, but the whole phase 1, phase 2, this then all of a sudden reminded me of the January 6th security tapes from the Capitol. How we heard he's going to release all the tapes are going to be released. You remember that when Mike Johnson became Speaker of the House and everyone was like, Mike Johnson's going to be Speaker of the House? Why Mike Johnson? And he goes, I pledge that I will release. That was one of the things he promised in order to get the votes to become Speaker of the House of Representatives. I promise all the January 6th tapes are going to be released. Every single one of them is going to be released. And that was something that he said, I'm going to do on day one. We got some of them. You know, we got a handful. Why does my phone keep falling off the table? Hang on. We got a handful of them. We started to see, the security guards wander around the Capitol building. We saw the QAnon shaman get escorted. He didn't push his way. He didn't shove his way. The police were like, oh yeah, you want to get to the House floor, the Senate floor? Come on, this way. And they opened the doors for it. We saw all of that. And it led to the release of some, but we didn't see all the footage. There was something like 40,000 hours of footage on all these cameras. I didn't see all of it. We saw bits and pieces. Then everybody just forgot. And this comment by Marsha Blackburn about phases, this kind of is eerily similar to the whole, oh yeah, we're going to give you bits and pieces and then just hope that you all forget.
This is going to be a phase one release in short order. I will have the hard copy in my hand. AG Bondi is responsible for what will be the public release on this. She has worked diligently on this and so appreciative that we can begin to get this information, that we can begin to break apart what became a global human trafficking, sex trafficking ring, about $150 billion a year business. It is time to get some justice for these victims, for these women and children, and this will be a phase one release. There will be more to come.
All right. So again, and maybe it has something to do with court cases or cases that they're building. You know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I don't want there to be a phase one and no phase two. I don't want there to be a phase one and then phased out. That's my concern. My concern is that it's phase one and then phase it out and move on to the next thing. We're still waiting on the JFK files. We're still waiting on the RFK files. These are all files that have been declassified by President Donald Trump, and there's a select committee. Pam Bondi is one of them. I know Kash Patel is another. I know our buddy Mike Waltz from the NSA. He's also on the committee that's supposed to work diligently on declassifying these files and making sure we get the information that we're supposed to get. Because there's people's names on these manifests and these lists that we want to know about. And I hope that it doesn't turn out to be like the Babylon Bee thought it and said it would. This was the Babylon Bee. It says, breaking: a black bar visited Epstein Island hundreds of times. Look at this. Look at that black bar again to the black bar. Look, black bar, black. Look at all these black bars. Man, the black bar. It's like the black bar almost lived on Epstein Island. I don't want that to be. I think the Babylon Bee can be B-E, not B-E. The Babylon Bee can be eerily prophetic at times. And I'm hoping this is not one of those times. This is not one of those times. Speaking of eerily prophetic, there's a couple of other people. A lot of people have been prophesizing or talking about this. Elon Musk, you may remember he did an interview with, he's done a couple, with, who's that guy that Dan Crenshaw hates? Who's the guy Dan Crenshaw said he would effing kill? Oh yeah, Tucker Carlson. And so Tucker Carlson, before his life was threatened by Representative Dan Crenshaw, what's the word for it? What is it? Eye Patch McCain? Is that what? Sorry. That's such a horrible and yet awesomely fitting name for Daniel. Eye Patch McCain. Arr, if I ever see that Tucker Carlson, I'll effing kill him. Arr. You shiver me timbers. If I ever see Tucker Carlson one-on-one, I'll make him walk the plank, I will here. I'll tie some booty to his leg and shove him to Davy Jones's locker, that effing. That's why Eye Patch McCain. Eye Patch McCain, by the way, just sounds like a character from Pirates of the Caribbean, doesn't it? You got Jack Sparrow, you got Davy Jones, you got Barbosa, you got Eye Patch McCain, you got Bootstrap Bill. I don't know. I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh, yeah. Elon Musk was talking to Tucker Carlson And here's what he said about Epstein's list and Epstein's island and the people that he thinks should be shaking in their boots.
You know, I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support, if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes, and Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reid Hoffman, by the way, is the billionaire founder of LinkedIn. And I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn because I don't live in the LinkedIn world. I'm not a sales rep that's trying to network with people. I don't want a job anymore. I mean, I'm trying to this is my job now. So by the way, that reminds me, please subscribe. If you want to send me a super chat or some kind of Rumble rant, this is my job now, folks. So, I'm like I don't know if you've ever been to like Central Park or Washington Square Park or a big city where you get off the subway and there's a bunch of guys and they've got some like drums but basically they're just upside down containers of various different shapes and sizes, maybe like one of those orange Home Depot containers or a trash can lid. And they got a couple of drumsticks and they're just like, and then they've got a little hat and people are walking by and throwing money in the hat. That's basically me now. I got a couple drumsticks and I'm just rap-a-ta-ta-ta-pap on some trash cans here, trying to make sure that you can throw me a bone. So if you would like to send me a Rumble rant or a super chat on YouTube, I would definitely, it's all appreciated. Whatever you do though, definitely subscribe. So anyway, so Elon Musk is saying, yeah, Reid Hoffman and Elon Musk, they probably are very nervous.
You know, I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support, if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes, and Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
By the way, Reid Hoffman's probably uncomfortable because his pants are too tight, but that's a whole other story. And Reid Hoffman, he sold LinkedIn. He created LinkedIn, made a bunch of money on LinkedIn, then sold LinkedIn, made a bunch more money on LinkedIn. He sold it to, of course, Bill Gates and Microsoft. So the two of them are thick as thieves. A lot of people think they are thieves, and they think that there may be some information on that Epstein client list, which, by the way, has still not been released. We're still waiting on that Epstein client list that may make them uncomfortable, that may make them embarrassed, that may make them, I don't know, subjects of investigations. I have to imagine that Donald Trump, being the person that he is, would, because here's where it gets tricky for President Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a lot of enemies. Donald Trump has a lot of political enemies, people who tried to lock him up, people who came after his family and his fortune and his finances and his company and his freedom. They tried to put him in jail in Georgia, in Florida, in Washington, D.C., in New York. They cost him multi-millions of dollars in legal fees and fines. They tried to besmirch his reputation, calling him a sexual abuser, accusing him of fraud, accusing him of tax evasion. They tried to say that he colluded with Russia, that he's Putin's puppet, that he's an operative, all of that, he's unpatriotic, that he's a grifter, everything. They threw everything at him. Racist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, all these things that Donald Trump is not, they tried to claim that he is. So he's got a lot of political enemies, and I imagine a lot of those political enemies are on this Epstein client list. They're right there under the black bars. And I think Donald Trump's okay with those enemies coming out. I think Donald Trump's okay with those enemies being brought to justice. But there's probably some people on that list that Donald Trump is working with in a legitimate fashion to try and reinstall or to try and build up the United States of America. And I think he may find himself in a precarious position where, yes, he wants to bring criminals to justice, but he also doesn't want to, maybe jeopardize some 500 or 600 or 700 billion dollar investments in the United States, because that is one of his big goals. That's one of the things he wants to do. He wants to make sure that he is protecting America's financial future, getting people, the billionaires, the millionaires and the billionaires, mostly the billionaires, to invest in the United States of America, and also go after his political adversaries as well. Ken wrote, more pirate voice, please, on YouTube. Ken, maybe give me a minute. I will gladly do some more pirate voice. Well, maybe we'll do some Dan Crenshaw. We'll do some Dan Crenshaw coming up here in just a minute. So I think that that's where Donald Trump is. I think that Donald Trump's walking a tightrope. And you're going to find people who look, I'm sure we're going to find out more about Prince Andrew. I'm sure we're going to find out more about people that we've never heard of or people whose political fallout will be minimal. And then maybe down the road, we'll find out about some people whose political fallout will be maximum. That's what I'm waiting for. That's what I'm all here for. Hopefully we'll find out something soon, because Cat Turd tweeted earlier today. He said, even one name is more information than we've ever gotten. So, and I'm with him. I'm like, give us one name. Throw us a bone. Give us an Epstein bone. That sounded worse. That sounded worse than I meant it to. Either way, look, and a lot of people are saying Donald. I had this conversation yesterday with my own family, because we were watching TV and David Muir was on, and I just, they were trying to watch the news, and they were watching. I walked in, I go, why are we watching David Muir? He's the worst person in the world. But there was some story about a pod of dolphins they were waiting for, or it was Michelle Trachtenberg. I think they teased the death of Michelle Trachtenberg from Gossip Girl. So my wife and my daughter, who are now binge watching Gossip Girl, or had been for a while, so they're like, we're waiting to find out about Michelle Trachtenberg. We're waiting to hear about the dolphin pod. I don't know, it was something like that. So we're watching David Muir, who's the worst, because he's such a liar. That guy's such a liar. He's the worst. And what was I saying? David Muir was talking about the Epstein list. Oh yeah, Donald Trump. And so we're watching the news, and all of a sudden I see this, they're doing this story on Donald Trump and his cabinet and Doge and everything else. And they bring back up the Harvard study about Donald Trump, and watching these people have to discuss how happy the American public are with Donald Trump. It's amazing. But they bring up, of course, the Epstein client list in Ukraine. And the one thing they said about Ukraine was, Donald Trump announced that he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. Okay, President Zelensky is going to be at the White House tomorrow. President Zelensky is flying in from Ukraine. He's coming to the White House. He's going to sign the minerals deal. And the minerals deal is important because, well, it gives the United States some of its money back. The hundreds of billions of dollars, over $300 billion that the United States has invested in Ukraine without a single penny back, without a single solitary dime. We've invested all of this coin, all this cheddar, and we got nothing for it. And Europe is investing less, substantially, $100 million total, which, if you think about it, is an obscene amount of money for Ukraine to fight this war. $100 million total is what Europe has invested, and they're all on loan. They're going to get their money back. So Donald Trump said, look, we're going to fix this right away. If you want us to help you, if you want us to protect you, then you've got to give us something in return. And so this minerals agreement is going to be signed tomorrow by Vladimir Zelensky. Then there's some process with whatever's left of their parliament they have to go through. I don't know. It's like a whole thing. But it's one step closer to a ceasefire than we've ever had. It's one step closer to ending the war than we've ever had. And it seems that after he signs this deal, in short order, this war will end. And yes, I'm sorry, David Muir and company over at ABC. Donald Trump did not end the war in 24 hours, but it's been 37 days, and we're closer to the end of the war than we were in 3 years under the Joe Biden administration. Joe Biden was president for 3 years, and this war raged on. This war raged on in Ukraine. This war raged on in Russia. This war raged on everywhere. And all of a sudden now Donald Trump gets a ceasefire agreement, or a minerals agreement, rather. He gets the Ukrainian president to fly here. He has talks with Russia in Riyadh, which is something Joe Biden was never able to even bring to the table. And everyone's like, well, you didn't do it in 24 hours. Well, you know what? Joe Biden didn't do it in ever. Donald Trump has gotten closer to peace in Ukraine than anyone thought possible. And nobody thought he was going to do it in 24 hours, but 37 days is the next. That's basically like 24 hours. In negotiation speak, in diplomatic speak, in the way that politics works, especially when you're dealing with hotheads and communist countries like Ukraine and Russia. Oh, yes, I know Ukraine's not a communist country. Okay. They don't have elections. They haven't had an election in a while. Their president doesn't want to leave office. Interesting. But he's not a dictator at all. He's not the only dictator. The only dictator is Putin, according to Rupert Murdoch in the New York Post. So Donald Trump has got these people to sit down. He's got a negotiation going, and he's got this minerals deal that he's going to sign tomorrow. I think Donald Trump's doing much better than any other not just president, but diplomat anywhere in the world. And J.D. Vance yesterday at the first cabinet meeting, the best cabinet meeting, by the way, Donald Trump had his very first cabinet meeting of his second administration. Everybody was there. All the key players were there. The media was brought in. Elon Musk was there in his tech support shirt. And Elon Musk said something which is 100% true. He said something about the cabinet, and it is 100% accurate.
President Trump has put together, I think, the best cabinet ever. Literally. So, I do not give false praise. This is an incredible group of people. I don't think that such a talented team has actually ever been assembled. I think it's literally the best cabinet that the country has ever had, and I think the company should be incredibly appreciative of the people in this room.
It's the best cabinet ever. It's like, do you remember on VH1, The Best Week Ever? This is the best cabinet. Or there was a song by that group where the guy who jumped out of the building or fell out of the hotel, what's it called? One Direction. And we met all day with the best cabinet ever. Da, da, da. That was a song, right? That should be. That will be my next song, the best cabinet ever. But J.D. Vance, who's part of as vice president, is part of the cabinet. And some people forget that. J.D. Vance, vice president of the United States, is part of the cabinet. You should remember that because when there was talk of using the 25th Amendment on Joe Biden, it was the vice president who could initiate that and get a certain, percentage of the cabinet to sign off on removing the president. They never did because they were a bunch of pansies. And in the end, it turned out to be worse for them anyway because Kamala Harris, well, you know the thing. But J.D. Vance reminded the press at the cabinet meeting, look, Donald Trump is negotiating like no one's ever negotiated before, and you guys are the ones that are getting in the way.
I mean, look, as the president said, we're not going to do the negotiation in public with the American media. He's going to do it in private with the president of Russia, with the president of Ukraine, and with other leaders. And I think that's how this has to go. I think I just want to push back against some of the criticism I've seen of the administration on this, because every single time the president engages in diplomacy, you guys preemptively accuse him of conceding to Russia. He hasn't conceded anything to anyone. He's doing the job of a diplomat, and he is, of course, the diplomat in chief as the president of the United States.
Yeah, the diplomat in chief, the DIC, the diplomat in chief. We'll just go with that. We'll just go. We don't want to. The dice. There we go. He's the dice, the diplomat in chief. We'll go with. Yeah, but it's true. J.D. Vance is saying, look, Donald Trump is negotiating. He's negotiating unlike anyone you've ever seen negotiate. He's negotiating a deal with Ukraine. He's negotiating a deal with Putin. He's negotiating a very sensitive situation that involves some pretty brutal parties. And he's doing a great job. And then, of course, he's got to come home and listen to you people, quote unquote, talk about how he's ceding things to Russia and giving up things to Russia. And he's already making promises. He's not doing anything. He's negotiating. So why don't you guys sit down, shut up, and let Donald Trump take the lead? Doug Burgum, by the way, who knew? I mean, I never really knew anything about Doug Burgum until he ran for president, which is, by the way, if you're an unknown and you're looking to make a name for yourself, run for president because it does wonders for people. I mean, not Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, but other people. Like, for example, I think I figured it out. Here's the plan. If you are looking to make a name for yourself in the world of politics, if you are looking to make a name for yourself in the world of, whatever it happens to be, then run for president. Be really loud and boisterous or make some really good points, then drop out early and back the guy who you know is going to win. And then go campaign for him, and your political career takes off. Look at Vivek Ramaswamy, who is now not only running for governor in Ohio, but has the full endorsement of President Donald Trump, and I believe is the front runner. I don't know if there's anyone in Ohio who at this juncture is going to beat Vivek Ramaswamy. And if anybody throws their hat into the ring, man, you want to talk about an uphill climb? They are going to be climbing uphill for a very, very, very long, a steep uphill climb. For whoever's running for governor of Ohio. Doug Burgum was the governor of North Dakota, ran for president, realized he wasn't going to win, backed Donald Trump, and now he's a key factor in, not just as the Secretary of the Interior, but he's a key player in every aspect of the Trump administration. And he too is saying, look, what we're seeing here is leadership in action, but like the way America's not used to.
What the nation is seeing is leadership in action from President Trump, and it's great leadership. He's providing very clear direction to all the cabinet leaders through the executive orders. Those executive orders include details of what the secretaries are supposed to do. Then he's empowering all of us to go get it done. He's putting it out there with a sense of urgency of make things happen, go fix things for the American people. And then he does the thing that wasn't happening in the last administration, and then he holds everybody accountable. And these are the components of great leadership. He's exhibiting it, and it's why we're seeing this presidency off to such an incredible and historic start.
That is the key to Donald Trump's success, and Doug Burgum wrapped it up there in a really nice little package, tight little bow around it. Donald Trump comes from the business world. He runs corporations, he builds buildings, but he is the CEO. He delegates. He finds the best people. He puts the best people in charge, and he says, I know you're the best at this, better than even I am. Go do it. You have carte blanche, free range, report back. He goes, here's what Donald Trump does. He finds people who are go-getters, who are self-sufficient, who are entrepreneurs, who know how to run a team, who know how to negotiate. He finds people who have built amazing things themselves, and he says to those people, here's the task in one sentence. Here's the task in one sentence. End the war in Ukraine. Or close the border and deport all the illegal aliens or illegal criminals, or fix the economy, or whatever the task at hand is. He finds somebody who he knows who can do it. He gives it to them and goes, come back in 30 days, or really probably 3 days, and let me know what's happening. Doug Burgum's exactly like that. His entire cabinet is made up of these people that are incredible. One of them, by the way, is what's his name? You know, the guy from Fox, Pete Hegseth. And Pete Hegseth, yes, his job is to fight and win wars. Yes, his job is to bring lethality back to the Pentagon. And that's something that he knows because he's not too far removed from the fighting men and women of the military, having recently been, more recently than most defense secretaries. Most defense secretaries are in their, 60s? Pete Hegseth is in his 40s. That guy's closer to the fighting age than he is to the retirement age in the military. He knows what's happening. And he is a cheerleader for the fighting men and women. He is the guy, good-looking guy, young guy, physically fit guy, well-spoken guy, well-educated guy, went to Princeton. He was on TV. He was in battle. He was in combat. He served in Guantanamo. He's been all over the place. Pete Hegseth, there couldn't have been a more perfect choice, in my humble opinion, for Secretary of Defense. And he was on the ground in Guantanamo Bay. And I want you to listen to what he told. What's her name? You know, that blonde lady from Fox. I know. Saying that blonde lady from Fox is like saying, that Catholic person at the Vatican. I know, they're all blonde ladies. What's that? Laura Ingraham. Thank you. Listen to what he said about Laura. They've been accusing the military and Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth of using Guantanamo Bay as a way to just torture illegals. The ACLU is trying to get into, they're trying to deport they're trying to shut down Guantanamo Bay again. Here's Pete Hegseth. Listen to what he said.
It's an incredibly professional operation. It's as I remember it when I was here. But I think the message is clear. If you break the law, if you are a criminal, you could find your way at Guantanamo Bay. You don't want to be at Guantanamo Bay, which is where we housed Al-Qaeda after 9/11. They're professionals. They do their job. It's not easy. It's not easy time. It's a maximum security prison.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be easy. Fun fact, it's not supposed to be easy. It is supposed to be hard, and it's a warning sign to other criminals who might want to come into the country or who are already in the country and want to commit crimes, even though they're not supposed to be here, that you're going to end up in a place that's it's not camp. It's not summer camp. It's not a vacation. It's not a spa getaway. It's Guantanamo Bay. It's where we held the 9/11 terrorists. And yes, there may have been some strong questioning methods used at Guantanamo Bay. I don't know. I can't say either way. I can't say for certain what went on there. I just heard some things. But if that's the case, then Pete Hegseth's like, look, that's you don't want to come here. And you can avoid coming here by not breaking the law, not sneaking into the country illegally, not bringing fentanyl, not bringing deadly drugs, not bringing any of those things. And that's the way that it's going to be. Pete Hegseth, fantastic. That's one of the reasons why the Elon Musk says the cabinet's great. He's awesome. And recruitment's up. People are looking at Pete Hegseth, teenagers, teenage boys, teenage girls. Everybody's looking at Pete Hegseth going, if he's in charge of the military, sign me up. Because that's the kind of guy I want to be like. That's the kind of guy I can relate to. I look at him and I think, oh, look at him. Good looking, young, physically fit, intelligent, and he loves America and he will fight for America. If he leads me into battle, I feel secure that I will accomplish the mission and come back safely. And the parents too. You know, we talk about it all the time. One of the biggest problems we have had with military enlistment and and people re-enlisting in the military, one of the biggest problems we had, and the reason that why enlistment was down, is because not necessarily that the young people didn't want to enlist, but their parents didn't. Even if they were legacies, especially if they were legacies. People who are like, my old man was in the Army, my grandpa was in the Army, I was going to join the Army, but you know what happened? My old man and my grandpa came to me and said, Joe Biden's commander-in-chief, we don't feel safe. You're not joining the Army. Because they knew what it was like to serve under real commanders-in-chief. Yeah, and real leadership, real generals who knew about lethality. They didn't want their kids going into a military that was more focused on pronouns and woke ideology and DEI practices. They wanted somebody who was going to take care of their kids. Because yes, they want their kids to go and fight for their country, but they want their kids to come home for Christmas. And with Pete Hegseth in charge and Donald Trump in charge, I mean, if either of my kids were like, I'm going to join the military, I'd be like, do it now. Do it now. Because I don't know what's going to happen in 2028. I have a pretty good feeling. If I'm still doing what I'm doing, I will work my darndest to make sure that the right person continues the legacy of MAGA, continues the legacy of Donald Trump. If you're here, and you should, and if you subscribe, you will be, then we will definitely continue this fight forever and ever and ever, so that we make sure we have the right people in place, and we make sure that that America never, ever, ever falls in to the wrong hands again. And by the wrong hands, I mean anybody at all, like the Democrat Party and Joe Biden, who was using it and weaponizing it for their own personal gain. There's another clip about with Pete Hegseth down in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, where the blonde lady from Fox, what's her name? Laura Ingraham. I don't know why I can't remember her name today. She asked him about the cartels because, look, drugs are still a problem. Fentanyl's still a problem. And in fact, Donald Trump said something today, which we'll get to next, about the drugs and the fentanyl and what's happening. Listen to what Pete Hegseth said about the cartels and the American military.
What's your message to the cartels? They're watching all this. What's your message to them?
Oh, my message has been from the beginning, we're taking nothing off the table. Nothing. We will do whatever it takes to secure the American homeland, to maintain our sovereignty, and protect the American people.
Does that mean you're ruling out potential strikes inside of Mexico on fentanyl labs that we know they exist, and we know where they exist?
No, I don't think I ruled anything out. Anything's on the table. The commander-in-chief, ultimately, with my consultation and with the chairman and others, will make those determinations, but nothing's off the table. Our sovereignty will be defended.
Yeah, that was a weird question. She's like, wait, so are you taking that off the table? He's like, no, I literally just said nothing. Laura, are you not listening? It was loud. Maybe she didn't hear. Maybe she didn't hear her well, or maybe she was just struck dumbfounded by his good looks. I don't know what. But whatever it was, he's like, no, nothing's off the table. If we need to go in there, and if we need to take out the cartels, if we need to surgically remove the cartels from the face of the earth, I got no problem doing that. I will work with the commander-in-chief, aka Donald Trump. We will work with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We will work with the secretaries of the Army and the Navy and the Air Force. We'll work with everybody. We'll lock ourselves in the Situation Room and we'll say, okay, these cartels aren't getting the message. The drugs are still coming across. They're still brash and brazen. Americans are still dying. And if Americans are still dying, Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, the rest of our military men and women, they're not going to sit around and let it happen. They're going to take action. And that action could be anything, including evidently military strikes on the cartels. Donald Trump, there was something else that's going on with the cartels. Donald Trump posted on, do I have it here? Here it is. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social about these tariffs that he was imposing on Canada and Mexico. They're supposed to go into effect on Monday, I believe. Let's see. Today's the March. When is March 4th? I think that's Monday, right? Is that Monday or Tuesday? What? Next week sometime. It looks like it's. Oh, my stupid phone update. Anyway, we'll get to it. Look, I think it's Tuesday. Let's see, 27th, 28th, 21, 2, yeah, it's Tuesday. So on Tuesday the 4th, these tariffs are supposed to go into effect with Canada and Mexico. And those tariffs are there because guess what? Canada and Mexico, they're just letting these drugs pour into the country. In fact, it's even worse than that. And I'll tell you how bad it is. I used to think way back a week ago, before I knew any better, way back when Donald Trump just took office, I used to think that China made all the fentanyl. And China shipped the fentanyl to Canada and said, get it into the United States. And China shipped the fentanyl to Mexico and said, get it into the United States. And they hired the drug dealers and the mules and the cartels, whatever. I used to think that was the way it was. But it's been a couple weeks, and now I'm a lot wiser, and I know that it's even worse than that. Here's what Donald Trump wrote. Drugs are still pouring into our country from Mexico and Canada at very high and unacceptable levels. A large percentage of these drugs, much of them in the form of fentanyl, are made in and supplied by China. More than 100,000 people died last year due to distribution of these dangerous and highly addictive poisons. Millions of people have died over the last 2 decades. The families of the victims are devastated and in many instances virtually destroyed. We cannot allow this scourge to continue to harm the USA, and therefore, until it stops or is seriously limited, the proposed tariffs scheduled to go into effect on March 4th will indeed go into effect as scheduled. China will likewise be charged an additional 10% tariff on that date. The April 2nd reciprocal tariff date will remain in full force and effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter. God bless America. I love the way he signs it like, like when your bill's overdue. Like if they're like, hey, you didn't pay your electric bill, we're going to impose a penalty of 20% for every 30. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I used to think it was just that China was making the drugs, sending them to these countries that border us. The countries that border us were bringing them into the country, and so Donald Trump imposed tariffs to get them to stop. It's worse than that. Canada and Mexico are actually not the governments of Canada and Mexico, but the people, the evil deed doers inside of these countries are actually complicit in the creation of these drugs. And here's Kevin Hassett. Kevin Hassett, who's one of my new favorite members of the Donald Trump administration and is doing a bang-up job explaining the tariffs, the need for tariffs, and why these tariffs will still be interred on Tuesday.
Well, what's going on right now is that President Trump is focused on solving the fentanyl problem. And the fentanyl problem really is related to 3 countries. So China makes the precursors, ships them to Mexico and Canada, and then in Mexico and Canada, they load it up into fentanyl, and then they ship it across the border. And the progress that has been made so far that we get briefed on was not as impressive as the president hoped. And I think that's why he took the action that he did.
So eventually they may see a pullback on these tariffs if they start to see the progress being made.
And the fact that the tariffs are in place doesn't mean they should stop trying, because if the president introduces tariffs again in April 2nd, he's talking about, right, then the tariffs that are in place now will be on top of whatever else happens to other countries. So he's very serious.
And you're talking about those reciprocal tariffs then coming
on April 1st. And then whatever is on now is going to go on top of that, because he's so adamant that we solve the fentanyl crisis.
And then again,
correctly so.
Yeah, but that's Kevin Hassett, by the way. And Kevin Hassett, he is the director of the National Economic Council. He's Donald Trump's chief economic advisor, and he's a very smart guy. On a side note, I don't like this side-by-side thing they're doing. I prefer the camera, like put the camera on Kevin, because we don't really care about anyone, and just ask him questions off camera and let him answer. But they're doing this side by side thing now all over I noticed that's like a news. I'm not a big fan of that. But whatever. I mean, again, nobody asked me, and it seems to be working well for them. But Kevin, he's the #1 economic advisor to the president. He says these tariffs are necessary because what's happening is the beginnings of the fentanyl crisis, the beginnings of what turns into fentanyl, the ingredients are shipped from China to Canada and Mexico. They're then turned into drugs in these countries, including fentanyl, and then shipped in. So it's much worse than we thought. And Donald Trump not at all happy with the efforts, I guess, by Mexico and Canada to curb the drugs that are pouring in. And think about this too, because we know that immigration is down. Immigration is down 95%. There are more border agents at the border than people trying to cross illegally into the border. That never happens. Last Saturday, it was like 200 people that they encountered at the border, as opposed to 2,000, which used to be typical on a Saturday. So Donald Trump has shut down the border. They're getting the message. Illegal immigrants are no longer just pouring into our country, but somehow the fentanyl still is. How is it getting in here? Where is it coming from? We're working on that. Canada needs to work on that. Mexico needs to work on that. And until they do, these tariffs are going to go into effect because Donald Trump ain't playing. He was tasked with ending the drug epidemic, with protecting Americans and making money for the country. And he's going to do all three of those in one fell swoop with these tariffs. And nobody's going to stop him. And that is why people love Donald Trump and say he's doing a fantastic bang up job. And Donald Trump knows it. He said so in the cabinet meeting yesterday.
So since the election, the confidence in our nation, including right track, wrong track, the first time it's ever happened where we were on the right track, because this country has been on the wrong track for a long time. So the confidence in business, confidence in the country has reached an all-time high. We have never reached levels like we are right now.
We've never reached levels of, we're on the right track. The Trump train is on the right track and everybody's on board. Chugga, chugga, choo, choo. Get on. I used to have the Trump train. In fact, I still have the Trump. So fun fact, my wife and I were cleaning out the garage a little bit last week. And every time we clean, last year, for those of you that are new to the show, last year I had to go clean out the studio, the radio studio, after they realized I was too intelligent and entertaining for them. So they asked me to please leave and go be intelligent and entertaining at home. So I emptied out the studio. We got a big moving truck. It was a whole big thing. And I moved everything into the garage. That was literally almost a year ago. I think tomorrow's the anniversary. And so in the past year, our garage has gone from, it's a 2-car garage and my wife parks on one side. The other half, totally unusable, just crap everywhere, furniture, boxes, electronic equipment, lighting equipment, this, that, the other, cameras, books. I mean, just we had a museum, all this kind of stuff. And so every couple of weeks, my wife would be like, hey, can we work on the garage and maybe get rid of some of these things? Or, hey, is there anything you want to list for sale? Like, are you using those chairs and that couch? Or, hey, so we've really whittled it down and we've really gotten it to a place where, I mean, we're in pretty good shape. And every now and then I'll find some other collectibles and things and I'll bring them in here. There's a pillow that somebody knitted me, which I put on my I have a nameplate up there, which Bobby Gong's made for me, and my nameplate is, so I've got stuff that I'm pulling in periodically and we're replacing it in in my home studio now. But just this past weekend we were in there and there were some lights. I used to have lights all over, big light, like DJ lights. And I was able to sell those. But one thing that my wife unboxed, she goes, what is this thing? And I go, what does it say? She goes, it says Trump train. And I go, yeah. She goes, did you want to keep that? I was like, yeah, 100%. I want to keep the Trump train. And the Trump train back in years at the back in 2016, we got online and we had a track, and every week or so they would send us, first we got the engine for the Trump train. And then the next week we would get like another car and then another car and another car. And eventually we had this whole Trump train, and I had a conductor's hat and then Donald Trump, and it was amazing. And the Trump train would run around in the back of the show until it didn't. But I was like, I'm keeping that. I got to find a place for it. I don't know where it's going to go, but the Trump train will go somewhere. When we get the dry cleaners, when we finally have our own studio, when we get like Dan Bongino. Here's the other thing about Dan Bongino. I was listening to Dan Bongino yesterday, and he was talking about the transition, how he's moving away from, broadcasting to collecting bad guys off the street, going to be the deputy director of the FBI. And he's like, by the way, he said, we have 10 shows left. Here's Dan Bongino. He goes, we got 10 shows left. 10 shows left. That's it. And then I'm sad. And I could imagine if you told me I only had 10 shows left, then A, that means I'm dying because I wasn't offered a job anywhere. If they're like, Mark, if someone came to me and said you have 10 days left, I'd be like, oh God, what is it incurable? Dan Bongino's just changing. He's going to work for the government. So but anyway, he goes, we have 10 days left. He goes, but next week we move into our own studio. And I was like, he goes, we move into our new studio. I go, wait a minute, what? You have 10 days left and you're moving into a brand new studio? Anyway, I'm not jealous. I'm just saying that reignites the fire in me to get the laundromat or whatever other place I can get to have as our new Kayetriot HQ, which, by the way, our Kayetriot HQ here is amazing. deep in the heart of Mar-a-Lago in luxurious downtown Jacksonville. We love it. It's fantastic. But, you know, it could always be bigger, and then we could have room for the Trump train. But look, the country is on the right track. And if Donald Trump continues this way, he's going to become even more popular. He's going to get even more people behind him. His agenda is going to move even faster. I kind of wish that these Epstein files would come out because, I mean, again, it's what time is it now? It's 1:10. It's been an hour since we started. Here's the New York Post. Here's what on, they wrote. Wait a minute. Here's what on the Jeffrey Epstein list that the Trump DOJ is set to release later today. I have to imagine this is a typo, which I guess, you know, the New York Post, shocking that they would have one, but they do. Here's what's on the Jeffrey Epstein list that the Trump DOJ is set to release later today. So apparently the New York Post seems to know what's on this list, even though the rest of us haven't seen it yet. And we're all waiting very patiently. The Justice Department is preparing to release the notorious sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein's personal address book Thursday, the Post has learned. A source who has reviewed the files said that the release spans more than 100 pages, including a list of contacts without further context. The person said the release was likely to be a disappointment to sleuths eager for bombshell new evidence about Epstein's connection to prominent political and business leaders. Former President Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and President Trump are among the high-profile people who associated with Epstein. A client list is not included in the initial release, which was compiled into binders describing the disclosure as phase 1 of the Epstein files, according to the source. Copies of the binder circulated within the West Wing ahead of an anticipated afternoon publication. It's unclear if Attorney General Pam Bondi intends to release more Epstein documents. Somebody didn't proofread this, though the binder's name suggests that may be the plan. A Justice Department spokesman did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So apparently, by the way, there's Ghislaine Maxwell giving him a foot rub on board of his private jet, which is always, that's one of the creepiest photos in the history of photos, I would have to imagine. But Ghislaine Maxwell, she's serving a 20-year prison sentence for her role in helping Jeffrey Epstein, you know, traffic these young women for sex. And there she is giving him a foot massage. But back to the story. So evidently what happened was there was yet again a leak somewhere in the White House or in the Department of Justice. And the New York Post got its hands on these binders or some of the information or a compilation of information in the binders, which means they need to go back to the drawing board and figure out where these leaks are coming from, because that's never good. You never want leaks coming out of the White House, especially sensitive information like this. But we even if they're right, even if that's what's happening, even if that's what we are going to see on the Epstein client lists, we still have not seen the Epstein client list. We still have not gotten the official word from the Department of Justice. We still have not gotten the official transcription or the official whatever from Pam Bondi and the DOJ, which now we've been waiting for, well, let's just say a very, 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 very long time. I imagine that, let's see. Oh, hold on. Let me check X here real quick. Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary and friend of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, posted at 11:58 a.m., so just before the show started, White House counselor Alina Habba tells Piers Morgan that she just saw Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and expects Epstein list to come out today. I don't see how it's not shocking. Absolutely expect criminal charges to be filed as a result. Now, Alina Habba, she would know. She's not only an attorney, but she's one of Donald Trump's closest confidants. Also, she's Kash Patel's best friend, apparently, or one of them. So let's see what else. There's Joy Behar, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of information coming out quickly. I've just been on X the entire time waiting for this list to come out so that we can see what else is going on. Incidentally, let me show you this picture of Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, at the White House. This guy, by the way, has been to the White House multiple times because whenever you win the Super Bowl, you get to go to the White House, and let's just say, well, they've won some Super Bowls. This is the first time that he seems really excited to be there, though. This is the first. Harrison Butker, who's a devout Catholic Christian. You may remember he got in trouble. Not trouble, but there was a big hubbub because he said something about women that women didn't like, or that liberal women didn't like, but a bunch of conservative women were like, yeah, I'll raise a family. I'll have some kids. That seems like it's God's plan. And now look, here he is in the White House, standing in front of the map of the Gulf of America with President Donald Trump. And he just seems so ecstatic to be here. Here he is once again in the press briefing room with Caroline Leavitt. Harrison Butker finally visiting the White House with a president who he probably can appreciate and who he most likely also voted for, which is very exciting for him. Anyway, that's just something I picked up because I was watching. I just noticed that. And I want, you know who else loves President Donald Trump? Another athlete yesterday, Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, millionaire, boxer, businessman, cultural icon. Floyd Mayweather was on that show, the Fox Business Show. I forget. I think it's called Fox Business Show. I don't know what it's called. But Floyd Mayweather was on, and he was asked about Donald Trump, and he said, you know what? Donald Trump, hands down, best president ever.
At least I'm happy, but we're never happy. When we had Trump before, we didn't appreciate him. But I think Trump is a great president. He's the best president in my eyes. He's the best president we ever had. A great businessman, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, actually, he's like, yeah, great. Donald Trump's a great president. You know what? Let me say that again. He's the greatest president ever. He's a great businessman, and that's what it's all about. At least I'm happy, but we're never happy. When we had Trump before, we didn't appreciate him. But I think Trump is a great president. He's the best president in my eyes. He's the best president we ever had. A great businessman, and that's what it's about. I want you to listen to that last part. Great businessman, and that's what it's all about. That is the key to making America great again, making America rich again. And I talk about this all the time. We have a community of conservative entrepreneurs. And it's a community. We get together every week. I have all kinds of different trainings and stuff like that. We talk about business. We talk about the business of being conservative, how conservatives can sustain their businesses and go on social media. Oh, there's a link. There's a link in the description of this video if you want to check it out. But basically, what he hits at is a very important aspect that a lot of people forget. When Donald Trump says, make America great again, there's only one way to make America great again. The only way you can make America great again is to make Americans great again, because America is made up of Americans. That's the ingredients. It's like if you're making a salad, right? Okay, let's forget salad. Maybe not salad. Maybe what do you guys like to eat? Tacos? Let's say you're making tacos, okay? And let's say you get some shells out of the cabinet and they're old and they're stale, and instead of being crunchy, they're like, they're chewy, but you're like, that's all I got. And you throw them on the plate. And then you go to get some beef, and the beef is old and it smells weird. You're like, I'm going to cook it up anyway. And you don't have any seasoning. You don't have any cayenne pepper or whatever. So it's just this plain, gross, old, smelly, probably rotten beef that you throw into these chewy, old, stale taco shells. And then you don't have cheese. So, maybe you get, you don't have like the grated cheese. So you get the Cheese Whiz, because that's all you spray some Cheese Whiz on your nasty beef. And the tomatoes are mushy and rotten. And the lettuce is wilty and brown. And you throw that on top. And the sour cream, forget about it. It's not even sour cream anymore. It's like expired sour cream always cracks me up because it's already expired, I thought, but whatever. And you bite into this taco and it tastes disgusting. It feels horrible in your mouth. It makes you nauseous. It makes you sick. It makes you vomit. And you never want to have another taco again for the rest of your life because the ingredients were so bad. It was the world's worst taco. And it didn't make you feel good. It didn't make you like tacos. It made you feel sick, and it could have killed you. That's the same way the United States is. When Americans are not at their best, when they don't have money to invest in businesses, when they don't have money to make themselves happy or healthy or buy good food or go to the doctor, when they don't have money to relax and to go on vacation or to pay for their kids' college educations or their own educations, whether it's college or online. I mean, wherever you get educated, wherever you get your information, you're investing in yourself. But if you don't have money for that, then you're not going to be the best you can be. You're going to be a nasty taco. But if you have money, if you have somebody who empowers you to be the best that you can be, And if we can make Americans great, every single one, if you have great ingredients, you're going to have the best gosh darn taco. You're going to have that fresh, crispy corn tortilla. You're going to have that delicious Wagyu beef, freshly slaughtered with choice spices that just explode with flavor in your mouth. You're going to have the freshest ingredients, the tomatoes, the lettuce, the sour cream is going to just make your mouth, it's so tangy and fantastic. And you're going to eat this taco and go, I want more. Because whatever ingredients you put into something, that's your final product. So if you want to make America great again, you got to make Americans great again. And you make Americans great again by making Americans rich again. The only way to make America rich again is to make Americans rich again. The only way to make America healthy again is to make Americans healthy again. The only way to make America strong again is to make Americans strong again. And then by default, you'll have no choice but to make America great again, just like that fantastic taco. And Floyd Mayweather knows it. He goes, Donald Trump's a great businessman, and that's what it's all about. It's about letting this country full of people who just want the best for themselves, and most of whom are willing to work for it, most of whom are willing to use their creativity and their energy and their sweat equity and sometimes their money and their finances to invest in themselves and their businesses and their families and their futures. They're willing to do all of that if they're just given the chance. And if the government can get the hell out of their way, stop stealing their money, and stop telling them, no, you can't do that. You can't leave your house. You can't go to work. You can't go to that concert without a mask on your face. You can't start that small business without paying for all of these regulatory fees or getting these permits. You can't build that business without making sure that you file with this government agency and that government agency. We're going to take more of your tax dollars just because. You think you own the property, but you don't actually, because we're going to tax you every single year that you quote unquote own it. That's why we find ourselves in this position, and that's why Donald Trump is president. And that's why when Elon Musk sends an email to a bunch of government workers saying, hey, tell me 5 things that you did last week in order to keep your job, most of them freak out about it. Which, by the way, brings me to our next guest. So excited to have back the CEO of Colonial Metals Group. He's like me, only has a beard and a suit. And we're always thrilled to have him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Paul Stone, CEO, Colonial Metals Group. What's up, Paul? How are you?
What's up, Mark? How are you?
It's fantastic to see you. It's always a pleasure. And I always look forward to talking to you, because I know we start with one topic and then we end up with something that blows my mind. So it's really exciting. I do want to, before we get into like money, and I know there's some stuff I want to talk about with Ukraine and Russia and China and these tariffs and things like that. One question I have for you is, you're a business owner, and how many employees do you have under your employ?
Just around 100.
It's around 100.
Yeah. And we have two entities looking for candidates that we're trying to hire. We're hiring like crazy.
Oh, good. All right. So you got 100 employees. You're hiring like crazy. Things are going well. Have you ever in your life sent an email or had a meeting or just requested that your employees tell you some of the things that they've been working on or accomplishing? Is that like a standard thing, or is that something that is totally unheard of?
No. Yeah. That's probably one of the things I think is very important to our business. Is no one feels like they're lorded over or can't make a move without checking with others. We would rather people be sure of themselves, make moves, and if there's a mistake, we'll learn from it. But we're always checking in for the creativity from the bottom to the top, or from the left to the right. If you don't want to look at it from top to bottom, more like left to the right. New gals on the left, and folks that have been here a while on the right. We want to check in with their creativity, their inspiration. We don't have all angles.
Yeah. So what Doge did and what Elon Musk did, saying, hey guys, 5 bullet points of things you did last week. That's not unheard of or insulting or anything. That's typical run of the mill business practice.
This is going to spark off an interesting tangent. And I'll bend back to it. You let me know when we can. But no, absolutely not. You would only have an issue with that if you didn't do anything, or if it wasn't routine for you to do anything at your job that might come off as remarkable or noteworthy. That's where the friction comes from.
Yeah.
It isn't routine for them to not only not be asked that, but they haven't ever had to do anything. So they're embarrassed.
That's a good point. And see, it seems like it's all the way up too, because when you look at the waste and the fraud and the abuse that they're uncovering in Doge, it's not just the regular, foot soldiers that aren't necessarily working as hard as they should, but clearly the management isn't, and that's why we have people on the Social Security rolls that are older than the country. So I think that it's. Oh no, I lost Paul Stone. Where did he go? Paul, come back.
Right. Well, so then we got to take this opportunity to illuminate something here, because this is what in my mind, and I've talked to thousands of, almost retired and retirees over the last, 17, 18 something years. Thousands, many thousands of people, thousands of clients, throughout my career. And I would say that the number one thing they don't recognize is causing them to hold back in their mind something that they struggle to get past, is they look a lot like us in the government. They look like us. They say great stuff, especially when they're running for office. They say great stuff that makes sense. And so it's a sticking point. It's like a breakdown in thinking. When you're looking at these numbers and you're seeing these reactions by government people, bureaucrats and elected officials, and you're just thinking, but how could they mismanage things so bad?
Yeah.
And you've got to understand it is a completely different world. When I was a kid growing up, there was Super Friends. Mm-hmm. And there was this other weird world you could get sucked into called Bizarro Land.
Yeah.
Because it was the opposite Superman. So left was right, up was down, good was bad. So in their world, everything was bad. It was normal to do bad stuff. Like in our world, you would hope that it would be normal to do good stuff.
I mean, it depends on what district you're in, but yeah.
The government is literally Bizarro Land.
Yeah.
It's not, as soon as you cross inside that beltway, things are very, very different, if not completely opposite to what you used to. So you have to, as a concerned citizen, make room for these folks. They're different. They're just different. We can get into the other ways. I don't want to hijack your show, but this is a great illumination of that. If our folks got an email from Elon Musk talking about, tell us what 5 things you did last week, they would all jump at the opportunity to write back.
Right, exactly. And say, hey, look at me. Here are the great things I've done for the company. Wouldn't, reward me, promote
and might
me.
ask questions.
Yeah.
Hey, would be willing to get you're a brilliant guy, a car company, a boring mining company, an implant company, a space company, a satellite company, could you give me some feedback if you have any time on what you think of my ideas or what I did or what I could do better? That's what I mean. Out here on Main, in the working world, the non-governmental world, it's full of dynamic minds. What is attracted to the government is and this isn't labeling or shaming or anything. We could just tell by their work product, their output. If they were a sports franchise, we wouldn't be able to watch them play. It would be horrific. They wouldn't even be able to get all the players to the court or the field before the game. They would never win a game. So we're not shaming, but government attracts the non-dynamic mind. And this is where you struggle, Bob and Sue and everyone who's watching, and Milton and Harriet. And this is where you struggle, where you're looking at these folks. They look like you. They speak English. They sound like you. But they are actually going to the government to run away from having to face problems.
Well, and it also atrophies you. I mean, you go into a job where you can't get fired, and you know that you're going to have a pension, and you know that if you mess up, no one's going to really, prosecute you. They're going to shift you around to another department. I mean, the stories are endless. People know that they say get a government job, stay there for 40, 50 years, and retire on a full pension. That's a well-known stereotype.
Okay, so that is the mind that doesn't want to be challenged, doesn't want to be called out. In my studies, which aren't professional studies in psychology or anything like that, but I've been around, read a bunch, and lived through a hell of a lot. Mm-hmm. That the reaction from those, and you see them, the Democrats reacting at their podiums, they're blamers. They're attackers and blamers. They can hold no credible conversation. They can take no self-reflection. And again, these are our American brothers and sisters. We need not label them bad, but But the government did become, when Nixon ended the gold standard and it could financially power itself, its own financial power. Like Bill Gates wants to buy 3 Mile Island to power his AI machine. The government got its own financial power supply when it could print its own money and hire everyone it wants. So it became a complete enclave for the non-dynamic mind to run into and hide and get paid and do some labor, and no one cares if you did it on time or did it right or did it well. And that's where government, at its inception point, can never be your ally. It can only ever be the destroyer of the pursuit of happiness.
That's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about, I would say the media has gotten to that point too. The left-wing media.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Maddow has, you have more viewers than Rachel Maddow does.
Well, she sets the bar really low, but thank you very much for noticing. I appreciate that. Yeah, you're right about what we're starting.
But she's on national TV and gets $30 million a year. So they're obviously losing their, they're in the red over there at MSNBC and CNN.
That is true. But that's the kind of mindset. I mean, the USAID or whatever government agency was funding that organization now is no longer funding the media. So they're in the situation, we talked about this the other day, they're in the situation now where they actually have to do the business they've been telling people they've been doing for years. They actually now have to create quality programming that's going to draw in an audience so that they can sell those numbers to advertisers, and they just haven't been doing it because they've been the government-funded mouthpiece of the Biden administration for so long. Let's get on to the budget, though. So the budget reconciliation package passes with the exception of one vote on the Republican side, Thomas Massie from Kentucky. And this is, of course, the beginning of the process in the House of Representatives. But the big complaint is that there's still a lot of money being spent in this budget, even though this is an administration, or this is a government that's supposed to be cutting out all of the waste.
Yeah. So again, we need not lay blame.
Right.
We must make room for, Colin Powell said it beautifully. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Meaning as soon as you lay your plan out, the tanks are here, the ships are going to launch from there, the troops are going to go this way, and we're going to hit at these different times. Here's how the flank comes. As soon as all that starts moving and engaging with the enemy, they can behave in ways you weren't ready for, and you have to start pivoting.
Yeah,
and that's all it is.
Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get hit.
Yeah, Mike Tyson said they punched in the mouth.
Yeah, punched in the mouth.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So we don't want to make it, excuse making. It's just there are hard stops that are not going to move. And to me, at Madison Square Garden, Musk and everyone on the stage was supporting the bet that they would cut $2 trillion from this year's budget.
Right.
That Congress would literally be sending them a $5 trillion budget instead of a $7 trillion budget for fiscal year 2026. And now it's, we'll cut $200 billion a year. Well, that's a cut, folks. That's a real cut. $200 billion, okay, going the right. As long as you don't print any money. So here's how Congress has always sold you the idea it's cutting spending. They were projecting to create increases on spending next year, I'll use even numbers, 10%. And then they fight, and the media's mad at them, and Republicans, the voters are screaming bloody murder, and they go, oh, okay, so we're going to cut spending by 20%. Great, that's awesome. They're going to increase spending by 8%. They're still increasing. And here's at the seed ground of that increasing. As the government prints any money to pay its bills, it causes the cost to go up. Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security have workers who need raises and spend money on vegetables and meat and gasoline and all this stuff and home items, and all those costs are going up. So here's just one example. The workers need a pay increase each year, and you get it out of the government, of maybe 2% a year or whatever. So that human cost, because you can't outsource Social Security to China or nurses and doctors to China to deliver on your medical needs. So as the government prints to support retired people, and there's almost 1 billion people on the planet. This is a earthly challenge. 1 billion. There's 914 million people above the age of 70 on the planet. So this is where the giant financial black hole started from. In 1997, our retirees were created. We didn't really have any until then.
Yeah.
Like, this is the new thing. This is the boring thing that's way back in the background that causes them to come up with the weakest message that we've heard before. We'll cut 200 billion a year. We'll cut 2 trillion over 10 years. Bull. Because they also asked for the debt ceiling to be risen by 4 trillion.
Right.
So I don't fault anyone. Their battle plan is running into contact with the enemy. What Harry Homeowner needs to understand is, mathematically speaking, there is no way to cut spending, literally stop printing money, and then also spend less than what you got last year. There's no way to do it. Those costs are literally as efficient. There's some waste and stupid stuff, and you might find a couple $100 billion that doesn't get repeated next year. But if you're talking about a $36 trillion debt, you're not cutting into that. And we've heard some rosy stuff.
Yeah.
And I risk finding fault with the administration because thank God they're there, and I don't want them to get dour on anything. I want them to run into walls, run through walls.
Right. Well,
but it isn't going to happen.
And Donald Trump, I mean, speaking of running into walls and running through walls, I mean, every single day, to his credit, and what he does that nobody else does is, first of all, he saves money, even though the government continues to spend it. But he comes up with these creative solutions to, I don't know if it's paying down the debt, but at least bring in more money, whether it's reciprocal tariffs, which doesn't seem like too novel an idea. And yes, it's going to tick off some other people around the world. But, here at home, it seems like it could be a positive. Now he wants to sell gold cards for $5 million instead of just handing out green cards. And if you get a couple 100,000 people to buy those, all right, that's a nice chunk of change. But at the same time, there's a lot of pushback. Ukraine, for example, with the minerals, he's like, yeah, sure, we'll protect your country, but we want to get paid for it. And for whatever reason, that always seems like it's a bad idea to everybody who's not in the United States of America. There's always a foreign friction whenever the United States wants to get paid.
One, everyone likes to be known for new great stuff. Yeah. And they ain't come up with anything new or great in a long time. So they're probably like, damn it, we should have thought of that. So we didn't. So I'm going to act like a little child. I'm going to crap all over that someone else had the idea.
Right.
And two, the socialist-minded regime is about wealth redistribution.
Yeah.
It is not about profiteering. They're not going to have corporate-minded, free economy-minded, entrepreneurial-minded ideas. I don't want to shame anyone, but it seems like if there's been any miraculous contributions from Europe to the world stage, it's been medical. It hasn't been tech. It hasn't been, AI. It hasn't been the pioneering of anything, but they have been practicing medicine and researching medical improvements since 500 years, and we've been at it a couple hundred. But I don't know if the CAT scan was invented there or the MRI, right? I don't know what incredible medical inventions came out of a socialist country because they don't think that way.
Yeah.
They're just glad they're not in a monarchy anymore. So,
Paul Stone, CEO of Colonial Metals Group. Now, speaking of metal, because I just noticed Bitcoin, we talked about a little bit last time, and they just took a dump. It dropped 20,000, I think 20,000 bucks, almost 20,000. A lot of crypto.
20%.
Yeah, 20%. So a lot of, which I guess, now's the time to buy if you were in the market.
Can we just take a break though on Bitcoin? What is it?
Yeah.
What does it do?
What is it?
Where does it live? How does it have a function in our life? Is that supposed to come someday? Are we investing in a movie that they may never actually make?
They're mining it constantly.
What does it do?
It drops 20% every couple months.
Yeah. What about
no, I was going to
tariffs?
You mentioned earlier, you said something along the lines of how, there's a lot of other governments out there who are, I guess, they're not going to let Donald Trump do everything that he wants to do simply because it makes them look bad.
Yeah. And the biggest threat, and it was made in America, is the nation of China, which was communist when our elected, I got to say it correctly, because you and I we would have been against all of this. Hey, do you want to move all your factories from your happy little towns to China? We would have said no.
Not at all.
The elected officials said, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Because the corporateers, the American corporations literally asked them if it's okay to go set up even technologically sensitive things in China. And our government allowed them to do that. And so we got to realize that China didn't come here and negotiate for any of this. They don't have any brilliance in the way that entrepreneurs do. I would think that someone who just had the the idea to start a little dry cleaners change, maybe 10, 20 years ago has more entrepreneurial spirit than people in China. But they could certainly copy things they see. And they did. They copied us and they stole from us. And they've stolen probably everything that we know, cutting edge technology wise, they also know. Because how could they be so close with us with an aircraft carrier and a submarine, nuclear powered sub? How could they get, how long it took for us to get that technology? How can they be neck and neck with us in creating 5th and 6th gen technology fighter planes that are rivaling our stealth stuff? How? Because they steal it. And our government allowed that to happen. That country didn't negotiate for any of this stuff. And they're an honor system, meaning they will supplicate. They'll get a blade if they dishonor the king, the emperor, whatever, and just gut themselves on their knees and die. They'll give up their life because embarrassment and error is not something that seems to be in their culture that they look upon as the garden for improvement, for where the improvement and the perfection of things comes from. They see errors and mistakes as showstoppers. But when they get embarrassed and smacked around, like in Trump's first term, which he slapped tariffs on them in March of 2018, and they, in my opinion, they slapped COVID on America December of 2019. And you got to watch out for how they're going to retaliate here because he's throwing down.
Yeah.
Now, here's my opinion. Tariffs, okay, they're annoying. They're a nuisance. Maybe the consumer here will pay more or just buy less. But isn't this what we really want to achieve? Let's say 2 years from now, I've been saying a year, maybe that's just too soon. That's because I'm angry. 2 years, 3 years from now, American corporations have 3 years to no longer make a damn thing in China and then bring it here for sale.
Yeah.
You have 3 years. Because it's the gutting of our country, the American-made stuff. When you make stuff, have you made a science project with a kid, the volcano that spits out crap, or a kite, or any, a sandbox derby car, whatever they're called, make anything. Don't you have some pride from it? You write a great letter. You put on a great show. Mark, you have pride in that.
I do.
That's what's really been gutted from our country, and all of your shows are great. So you should be a very happy, proud person.
Well, thank you very much. It's soapbox derby, by the way, but I knew exactly what you meant.
Soapbox derby, yeah.
Yeah.
So making stuff. We don't make stuff.
Right.
Please pay attention that our economy goes out, that dies if we don't spend 70%. 70% of our economy is driven by you and me spending money when it used to be made by making stuff. So we got to look at how, what if China starts to worry that we really pull back? What retaliatory actions could they take this time that might just shut all that down and make our economy slave to theirs? Because they make everything we have to purchase here in this country, or we don't have an economy.
And it's so funny. I was just talking to my wife about this because we were watching some stupid show where they had white supremacists, whatever. But they were talking about Russia, and you'll notice, and anyone who watches the news or just pays attention, the left, the Democrats, are hell bent on Russia still being the greatest threat to the United States. And they are like, Putin's the worst, and Donald Trump should never work with Putin, and he's a dictator and he's the greatest threat. When people on the right, at least the ones that aren't, getting kickbacks, are all about China because of what you just said. Sure, back during the Cold War, it was all nuclear, and Russia had all the nuclear weapons and they could blow us off the face of the earth, but then there was the mutually assured destruction. Nowadays, it's all economic, and what you just said is exactly why the people on the far right who are screaming China, China, China are correct. That is our biggest threat because they could economically bankrupt us whenever they choose because we've chosen to give them all of our manufacturing.
74,000 manufacturing firms have closed in this country due to your elected politicians and bureaucrats and the corporations themselves that set their factories up over there. That's 74,000 since 1990. To articulate what that would mean, and wherever it is you're living, I doubt you'd have 23 7-Elevens in your county or even 23 gas stations, but it's 23 manufacturing firms in every county in this country to try to humanize that number. That's insane.
It's crazy.
That's insane. In 1990, 82% of all transactions that went off in America landed on things made in America. Today, 11%. And you look at the debt, and you look at the acrimony, and you look at the erosion, and you look at the social unrest, and you look at the anger and the frustration and the confusion. And I say it's because America is no longer grounded anymore. It doesn't make anything. And if you think the whole country's wagged by Washington, We could just saw 3 decades of that. It's not. It's wagged by the people living where their feet are, in their towns, making stuff. And then that family system is proud because all the families are at the factory making stuff. And dad's job is something great. And mom doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to because dad's income's enough.
Right.
Your elected government ruined all that. So now sit back and go, can Trump really solve all that? Can any man solve all that or woman? No. No, they can't. But if we gave our American companies a hard stop and said, you got to stop making it, because it's not an import. You can't tell me we're importing anything from China. It's your American company. It's DeWalt. It's any company, it's a towel company. It's a bicycle company. It's Schwinn. They're just
Apple
having the crap made there and brought here so they don't have to pay American workers money.
Yeah.
That's not imports. That's theft. That's evil. You're literally destroying the jobs of the consumers you want to buy your crap, having it made in China and brought here.
Right. And
that's evil because you're chasing corporate profits to increase.
Right. Well, they're building it over there cheaper, and then that way they can pay less for it. So when they come back here, they're like, oh, it doesn't matter that you make money because this phone's a lot cheaper. But if they made it here, people would have more money in their pockets. They could buy a more expensive phone.
But only the first few companies in our category had the edge.
Yeah.
Let's say a toy company said, this it costs $10 in America to make this toy. We could have it made for 60 cents in China.
Yeah.
Our profit margins will be crazy because we could sell it for $5 and all of our competitors are selling them for, $12, $15.
Right.
So for a little brief period of time, they had insane profit margins over their competitors. And then all their competitors went to China.
Right.
And now they're all back to that. It's like when all the airlines go on, price slashing. The first airline does it. They get a lot more tickets, queue up some more flights, make more money than the others, and they all slash their prices.
Yeah.
And then they all got to bring the prices back because they're like, well, that ain't enough margin to make a profit from.
The race to the bottom. The race to the bottom is what destroys all countries. Paul Stone, CEO of Colonial Metals Group. Do you still have the special on silver going on?
Yeah. Yep. Up to $7,500 in silver on the house. We make money in various ways, and so we're able to part with some of it as a reward based off the amount of money you decide to move into precious metals, and and a free safe to have at the home, fireproof, waterproof safe, not some cheesy safe.
Is it like one of those biometric safes where I can put my eyeball in it or something? Or combination probably. Yeah.
You needed something like that. We could always talk about a one-off, but waterproof, fireproof, 120 pounds. There's a couple different sizes depending on what you're working.
No, I had a safe and the batteries died in it, and I was like, so I had to figure out how to change the battery so I could get to my passport. If you're interested in precious metals and Colonial Metals Group, it's really easy. The website is freegoldguide.com/KAYE, which is my last name, which you can see right there. Freegoldguide.com/KAYE. We've also got it in the description of this video. Paul, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure.
You got it, man. I can't wait to come back. God bless you and everyone listening.
There has been an update on the files being released from the Jeffrey Epstein vault. Apparently, a bunch of conservative influencers, not me, but a bunch of others, DC Dranos there and Liz Wheeler, just left the White House with binders. And the binders, as you can see here, say, Jack Posobiec's got one, the Epstein Files, Phase 1, by order of Attorney General Pamela Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. And now it looks, here's DC Drano's tweet. Today I met with President Trump, VP J.D. Vance, AG Pam Bondi, and FBI Director Kash Patel in the Oval Office. They handed me a binder copy of the Epstein Files. This is the most transparent administration in American history. The best part, this is just the start. AG Bondi confirmed there are thousands more Epstein file documents being secretly held in the SDNY, and they will be delivered to the DOJ in D.C. by February 28th. That's tomorrow. People will be going to jail for what they've done. So I also found a link online. This is the FBI vault.fbi.gov, Jeffrey Epstein. And if you look at some of these files here, I've been opening that there are some redactions. I assume the redactions in these Jeffrey Epstein files, these are things that were sealed per court order. It gives you an entire list of everything sealed. I imagine a lot of these things that were sealed per court order are the names of the victims they were talking about that they're trying to protect. Here it's the child prostitution. So it looks like there is going to be the name of the victims and things that they're trying to protect. This is Tampa, Miami, to request travel reference captured on the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Palm Beach County resident. So again, it's going to take a long time to go through these. There's a lot of stuff here. This is Alfredo Rodriguez was interviewed in the town of Palm Beach, Florida, regarding a federal investigation involving the blank. After being advised of the identity of the interviewing agents and the nature of the interview, Rodriguez provided the following information. He was employed as a chauffeur manager for blank at blank residence. So again, a lot of redactions. There's a lot of these clips and things like that. I'm not sure. Again, I just literally stumbled on this. Jeffrey Epstein Part 3, Jeffrey Epstein Part 4. Let's see. Oh, oops. I went back way too far. This just appears to be... This does not... I don't believe this is the kind of stuff that was found... let's see. I'm sorry, we're just getting all this right now. Yeah, I guess this is all the stuff that the FBI has accumulated. Let's scroll down a little to, let's just find like part 9 here. And open that up. Why can't I? It's a lot of this. Yeah, so like I said, it's pages and pages, documents and documents. Let's go to part 22. Part 22 says here, let me take a look at this. On behalf of the state, Barry Kirshner, Esquire. We're gonna have to wait for the super. There's super sleuths right now who are going all the way through this declaration of Adam D. Horowitz, attorney for Jane Doe number 4. So again, a lot of what you're seeing here are, it looks like a lot of, we've got a lot of depositions. It looks like there's a lot of information about these various different women who were supposedly victims, not supposedly, but were, I guess, victims of Jeffrey Epstein and all these other people. Let me go back to, I want to download these. I don't just want to read them. There we go. Yeah, here we go. Part 10. So if you download this, you can get a better look at it. So it looks like a lot of it is just Jane Doe, because again, there were 250 victims. So it's not like a list of names. It doesn't yet appear to be, from what I've seen, a manifest. This is absolutely nothing. It doesn't appear to be like a manifest or, I mean, again, there's 22 parts in this. So there's a lot to dive into. Let's look at part 7 here real quick and see what we can find. Again, these are just lists of deleted pages. So, typical government stuff, lots of deleted pages. Lots of, here's some information we're not going to let you see right now. And again, I don't know if the deleted pages were deleted by this administration, a prior administration, someone else in the FBI. But as I roll through them, we're looking at a lot of deleted pages, not a lot of actual information, which I think is what we were discussing earlier. Let's take a look at this real quick before I download it. Let's go back. Let's go to part 21. And just see what we have here. Lots of faxes, lots of cover sheets, lots of... All right, we're going to go to part 21. And we're going to... Can I download part 21? Let me see here. Part 10. I cannot. All right, so we're going to read part 21 here and see what we can find out. So in part 20, these are, by the way, the Jeffrey Epstein files in the vault at the FBI. Again, a lot of redactions. They're not black lines. They're white boxes this time around. But it's subpoenas. Please deliver ASAP. Custodian of records, FBI subpoena request. Lots of subpoena requests. I'm trying to see if there's any names, any defendants. Metro PCS records. So it looks like they were trying to get, looks like here they're trying to get some kind of records of some kind of individuals. Looks like phone records, or they're trying to get some kind of Metro PCS documentation. Maybe it's text messages, phone calls between, oh, look, Sprint and Nextel. So they're subpoenaing Sprint and Nextel records. Please provide all account records in, according to this subscriber, but they don't give the subscriber or their phone number. No shock there. All right. So right out of the gate, I'm not 100% sure. Here's a phone number. So there are phone for me, but the fact this looks like it's They're just giving names, and those are just those are just government offices. That's not anything. Cellular. So there's a lot of cellular records that they appear to have been looking for from March 2007. Again, I'm seeing no names. I'm just seeing subpoenas and there's a photograph that has been, of course, redacted. Again, it probably has something to do with one of the victims. So anyway, we'll tear through as much of this as we possibly can. And I imagine that let me go to Twitter here real quick, because I imagine that what's going to happen is Twitter is already starting to probably roll through some of this information. Let's see. DC Drano. I don't even know if that's the actual. That may not be what's actually in the binder. That may just be stuff from the vault. Let me just see here. One more thing before we wrap it up, so we can take a close look. All right, here we go. It looks like the latest information is. All right, let's see what we got here. Epstein. So right now, I don't think any of the information that we just saw online is the information that's in these binders. But the binders are out, supposedly. They are out, and there's a group of individuals that have them. And I don't know if they're waiting for their own broadcasts or their own shows or their own podcasts or whatever. But probably what they're doing is they're waiting for, it says here, Liz Wheeler's like, tune in tonight. Go into the vault and type Epstein into the search. I don't think that's what we just did, but I don't think that's exactly what's in the binders. Not happy at all about the Epstein Files being released to only certain influencers. So now there are going to be, here's Alina Haba. Let's listen to her one more time.
Is far worse than anyone realized. Well over 200, maybe 250 victims, and that we're going to get information either later today or tomorrow from these files. What can you tell me about that?
I believe it will be today. I was just with, I saw Pam and Cash in the White House just before coming on your show. And I can tell you that I haven't been privy to it yet, but I know it is coming out. They will be taking portions of it. We have to be patient. And I said this last night at a dinner with some media. And I said, I think America needs to remember one thing. We are going to be promises made, promises kept. But when you're dealing with victims. And by the way, this is a perfect example of a case that was vetted, that went through trial, that had testimony, and was prosecuted the right way. I don't preemptively attack. That's just not the way I operate. But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Yeah. So that's the information. So there they are. There are the influencers. Some of them have their binders. We are not in that group. Where are they? There they are. They're holding up their binders. They're posing. There's DC Drano. I saw Liz Wheeler. They're zooming in on the Epstein Files, phase 1. So, so it was a selective group of influencers. Again, not me. But other people have them. And so I guess maybe they were instructed. It says that they met with President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and so apparently they're going to release. I guess they're going to go through them. They're going to release them on their own accord. I don't know what other instructions were given to these influencers. These people said, "Hey, you have to wait till 5 o'clock." I don't know if they put some kind of or you have to wait till you leave the grounds of the White House. I don't know if there's any kind of embargo on the information, but those binders and whatever's in them has been handed out to a select group of individuals at the White House, which again is now all of a sudden what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing people go, hey, wait a minute. Why? Now they're going to anger all the influencers that didn't get them. Let's see what we have here. Let's see. Attorney General Pam Bondi has confirmed that thousands of Epstein documents are still being secretly held in the Southern District of New York and will be transferred to the DOJ in Washington, D.C. by February 28th. With the first wave of files already in motion, the scope of who knew what and when is about to expand even further. The cover-up is unraveling who's next. But again, we're getting them in drips and drabs, and we're not even really sure, 100% sure who or what is in these binders that have been released to this group of influencers so far today. So we'll have to wait and see, and we will hopefully have more information, I assume tomorrow, but you never can tell. Anyway, there you go. If you follow any of these people, DC Drano, or if you follow Liz Wheeler or Jack Posobiec, just know that they're probably going to have some more information for you here in just a minute. For everyone else, thanks so much for joining us. I know we had a lot of people pop in today for the very first time. Please subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to this show and to this channel and to this podcast so that we can continue to bring you all the information you need to know every single day, whether it's information about the Epstein Files, whether it's information about other inner workings of the government, whether it's the latest going on with Ukraine or the IRS or the illegal immigrants. What we try to do here every single day is keep you entertained and informed and inspired and enlightened so that you have everything you need, so that you have all the information that you require, so that you can be ready, willing, and able at any moment to be totally trained, totally inspired, and totally equipped to fight whatever evil should try to overcome us and save the Republic. Due to the extra length of the show today, we will forego our after party. No after party today. We will have an after party tomorrow after the show. So if you're a member of the Kayetriot Club, we got some work we got to do. So we will hopefully jump into these files here in just a minute, and we'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, and we will have the after party for you tomorrow. If you'd like to join the Kayetriot Club,